Mr. President, very good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Monsieur le Président, bienvenue. Yes. Um, um, President Kagame. À droite, s'il vous plaît. Là-bas. Oui. Oui. Thank you. Asseyez-vous. Merci. Sit down and let's start. It's a moment of great historical importance. Leader of Rwanda and the leader of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's an historic moment, I think, and I think this bodes well. People are taking it as a very positive signal about the prospects for regional integration across Africa and also stabilization. But we also have to mark and commemorate a much more somber event, the genocide in Rwanda in 1994. In less than a week's time, I believe, people from around the world and your own citizens will be marking that. And I know at the same time, the people of Congo have also lost millions of people since the depredations of the 19th century, the looting expeditions and the effects of colonialism, and more recently, over the last 25 years, we've seen a succession of wars in the country which have debilitated Congo and have caused deep personal tragedy to that country and debilitated its capacity to generate its economy. So I think at this critical time, I wanted to get straight to this issue. You have, the two of you have sat down to talk about integration and stabilization. And I know you, President Tshisekedi, as part of your election campaign, said that your job as president is to end armed groups, the militias that have preyed on the Congolese people for so long, and close them down in Congo and usher in a new era of peace and stability. Now, could I first ask you, President Kagame, you've heard President Tshisekedi's promises to his own people, and I'm sure you've discussed this. And for many years, we've had this recurring problem of militia activity, particularly in eastern Congo, but across the country. I wondered what your government and your network within the East African community can do to deal with this problem.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm very glad that we have President Tshisekedi with us from the beginning in this forum, and it means a lot to us in Rwanda. I'm guest to the attendees of the forum and everyone. But to the point, I think you described it well from the start, how the problems, the tragedies of this region, whether it is Rwanda's or DRC's, or generally the region, the tragedy we have seen in the many years past, are going to be overcome by not blame game, pointing fingers at each other, internal, external, because let's face it, you gave it a history that dates back into colonial times.
Yes.
That is a fact, it's real. It feeds into the other failures we experienced of our own, yes, meaning the African societies, leaders, across the board. So all that we've known, we've experienced, we've gone through, and I think, so it suffices that today we look at the real way of getting forward and moving forward and finding solutions to the many problems instead of that. So, but it comes to a number of things, including what are our politics like? how are our people, the people of Rwanda, DRC, the region, the continent, being transformed? What is it that we can do together to actually bring about the transformation that we want, that has a meaning to our people? And we can't be thinking about that without thinking of all these kinds of root causes and the current causes of continued instability in different parts of our region, whether it is DRC or my country or other countries around. So the most important thing is, do we have leaders with this kind of good politics ready to work for our own people and bring them to participate? The citizens must participate in these things that in the end result into addressing these problems. We must also have leaders who are ready to cooperate, to work with each other. Because my problems in Rwanda, in many cases, end up being problems of DRC and the people of DRC, and vice versa. So we can't address that without cooperation, without working together, without really touching on the real root causes and the real issues of the day that we have to address. And there are possibilities with us, many opportunities to be able to actually address some of the things ourselves. There are inefficiencies, there is lack of resources and many things, but we have sufficient resources within ourselves, among ourselves, to actually call upon to deal with these matters. So that is where I would begin and start the discussion from, and President Tshisekedi has come forward. As you said, the many expressions he has made, the commitments he has made to his own people and to the people in the region, we have to believe him until we so we really have to start with that. We believe him, and we extend our hand of cooperation to him as he does his to us, and we see how far we can go.
So you think we're talking about a new era?
Absolutely. That's what I see, and let's test it and see where it takes us.
Monsieur le Président, can I get you to set out your views on this? Because, as I said, you did make this commitment as a solemn commitment on behalf of your party, the UDPS, to shut down these militias. So far in your discussions with President Kagame, do you feel too that we're at the start of a new era of cooperation in the region?
Bien, merci.
Well, thank you. I thank the organization for doing me this honor. I always said this, that we always go to our agreement on a principle, which is our countries will remain neighbors for the rest of their life. And as we are just the actors who will pass, but our two countries will remain forever. So it is not beneficial for us to fight, because it is a waste of time that it won't help us or benefit us. And it is for that reason we need to sit and talk more clearly. And I can feel that, I can see that there's a willingness, there's a will to move forward, and looking at how things it looks like here in Rwanda. We rather turn or move forward to our development than to waste the time disagreeing. That is exactly what I'm looking for. As for the militias, it has become, these groups, it become like groups of who are fighting for their own interest. It's not like they have a proper strategics, but these militias, they have become like businessmen because they are fighting with the actions which bring more, all about them winning some mining. The social life that they've been living is what had sent them to this problem. That's why we have put a program down to help these harm militias to come forward and try to see on how to discourage these harm militias so that we can integrate them among the society. Of course, this is another history which will demand the other countries to support, because the Lake Kivu require us to see on how we can explore our mining together. I think in Ruzizi and Burundi and Rwanda and DRC to go for this kind of initiation in order for us to grow up our economy, because it is not possible for a couple of many years, yet we are still not being developed. So this is the way that we would love things to be done, so that we can move forward to our development.
Monsieur le Président, in the last week you've been doing some shuttle diplomacy. You've been in Luanda visiting President João Lourenço. You've been in Kampala visiting President Museveni, and now you're here with us in Rwanda. You talked about the way in which these regional conflicts exacerbate tensions within the region. And some of them, in fact, a lot of them have been played out in Congo. And now on Monday, President Kagame referred to the dispute between Rwanda and Uganda as a political matter. And I think part of that matter does seem to be connected with Congo and certainly historical. A historical connection with Congo. And I'm just wondering whether we can use this moment with you two leaders together to make a plea to end this logjam because of the damage it's doing to the sort of continental economic integration we want to see, and also the danger that we could see a dysfunction at a political and a security level. Would it help if this conference made a call for a regional summit between yourselves and President Museveni to try and resolve this security impasse that the region seems to be facing at the moment? If you could say, represent what President Museveni thinks about this, that would help us all, I think.
Bien.
Well, eventually, when you are responsible for such kind of country in the region, you can't miss to discuss about such kind of things with your homologue. I did it with President Kagame and the same with President Museveni, but allow me not to discuss this secret because it is a conversation I heard with the two presidents, because this is not the right place to talk about it. But I remain focused for such kind of initiation, because I don't think that will escalate this violence between the two countries. By the way, the DRC is there to assist whenever there's a need for us to go and do it, because our vision is to keep a good relationship between us and not enemies.
President Kagame, can I get your views on this?
Yes, my views are that if problems like these would be solved by summits, we wouldn't be having any problem at all. We have had many summits.
With little progress.
With little or no progress. But on the serious side, you see, we want to be serious with matters of stability, of development, and we can't achieve that without, as I said earlier on, without cooperation, without working together, without really focusing on the common interests of our countries, of our people, which we should be representing. At the same time, it's unfortunate that some of these serious matters, even efforts we all try to put in, are undermined by petty things, like, for example, if you think that you don't like President Kagame of Rwanda because you think what should happen in Rwanda is supposed to be dependent on you, on your views, on your decisions, and yet you are from outside. This is bad politics, and it characterizes some of the things we have had to deal with. And we have openly stated that it doesn't matter anybody from outside, whether you like me or you don't like me. The President Kagame is here as the president of Rwanda, as a business of Rwandans. It's their business. If they want Kagame, they will have him. If they don't want him, they remove him. Doesn't matter whether. And I have told some of these friends of ours that it's actually very difficult, next to impossible, to imagine that you don't like Kagame, so you will change him and put there someone you want. It's impossible. But people don't want to hear that. So, therefore, as President Tshisekedi said, it suffices if we chose to concentrate on things that matter to us as individual countries, as well things that matter to all of us together, working together, and then put aside some of these other issues. I think it's the kind of politics that, in fact, the problem you earlier again mentioned about Rwanda and Uganda, yes, there is a small component, just in terms of happening, that brings in the DRC.
Yes.
But the root cause of misunderstandings between our two countries, Rwanda and DRC, which are supposed to be really brotherly countries.
The worst quarrels are often within families, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think it must come to a point where the family must sit and realistically resolve these issues.
But if not summits, I take your point. As a journalist, I've attended many pointless summits in my life. But if not summits, what? I mean, bilateral, close bilateral consultations. I know your foreign minister has been very clear on your position on the issue. Equally, the foreign minister of Uganda has set out. What mechanisms do you see in place to resolve this?
Continuing to talk about our problems, because I think we exhaust the kind of logic of continuing to undermine each other and come to a point where we find the best thing is to cooperate and work together and accept each other. Right. Or to say the least, if we can't work together as brothers, sisters, as friends, we can decide to give each other peace and forget about what we have to do together, but above all, avoid quarrels that may just be destructive, because no one would win or benefit from any serious quarrel about this. So, but if we forgot one another and let each, go about their businesses the way they want, that would be the second choice. Yes. Second to being good friends and working together and so on. In a spirit of cooperation.
Monsieur le Président, I wanted to come up with a positive note on regional integration. Your country sits on the majestic Congo River, which has the force of its water, has the capacity to generate electricity for probably half the continent of Africa. We've seen a succession of initiatives trying to dam that river at Inga, and we've now got Puti Inga, and Inga 1, Inga 2, and so on. What are your hopes for hydroelectricity in Congo? And finally, launching the great Inga project, Inga Dam project, and other projects I know you've been talking about, both to protect the environment in Congo, but also to meet the growing need for electricity across your vast country.
Merci. L'hydroélectricité, évidemment, c'est...
The hydroelectricity, it is the technology which is the world have to be implicated, as you just said, because there is a need to save the environment, and the Congo offer this facility so that things can go in that way. And in order to develop the energy of Barrage Inga in general, there is a possibility to distribute the electricity in the entire Africa continent, and we have the vision to work on that. We have discussed it with our partners, such as some president, as well as president of Uganda and Ethiopia, especially Ethiopia. They have a serious problem with the electricity, which they are preparing to launch. But I think if Inga get to develop in all ways, in the phase 8, will be having 48 megawatt in capacity, then I think on that problem, the problem of Ethiopia, it won't be a problem. Another way, we have more than 200 places where we can produce this electricity, all about 68,000 megawatt. So you can see that we have a lot to give, and in the terms of water, I think we need to level up our thinking so that we can see on how we can use or meet all the requirements, because there is a possible for us to take this water of Congo River to send it to other places of the country, we can use it through the tunnel.
Le fleuve Ubangi,
And
qui va avoir des conséquences, y compris sur l'énergie, notamment
use it. We can take it from the Ubangi.
Au monde entier de poumons pour absorber
So again, we are there to serve the climate change for the world, and we are the solution as the DRC to help African leaders to succeed on certain things which they need to be solved.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. We have a few minutes for questions from the audience, and I know both of you are very keen to hear the audience's thoughts, particularly such a well-informed and influential audience as this. So could we have some questions for the two presidents? It's an historic opportunity to ask these two presidents sitting on the same platform together. It hasn't ever happened before, so you can be part of history. There is a question coming there on my right in the column straight ahead. Could we have your question? Could you state where you're from and give us a brief question directed to either the president, one of the presidents, or both of them? Do we have an awkward silence? There must be some people out there who have to pluck up the wherewithal. The gentleman there in the second row, please. He's got his hand up. Thank you so much. Please state where you're from.
My name is Bassem Loukil. I'm from Tunisia. The question is regarding the regional integration. How much influence will the regional conflicts have eventually on the completion of the African Free Trade Area or agreement, since it seems like almost all neighbors have some type of conflicts that hinder either trade or investments or movement of people. So far, I think half of the African nations have signed up for the free trade agreement, and yet we keep on talking about regional conflicts, neighboring conflicts. How much will that be of a hinder to the completion of the free trade agreement? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions in this round? There's a hand up there. Yes, on my left. Please take the microphone.
Thank you for giving me the microphone. I actually was about to ask the same question, and I'm asking it as a businessman.
Okay.
I'm not.
Please, could you say where you're from?
My name is William, and I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you.
And I'm asking to President Kagame that I commend for his achievement here. But yes, I know that it's a big challenge for you to try to convince the other countries to change from being countries as such, because when you look at it, Europe today is it's different presidents that are like governors of different entities and are working together. African countries, to travel from one African country to another is a big issue. We're talking about conflict, but before we even go to conflict, it's very difficult to just cross from one border to another. You have been complaining yesterday of the fact that it's a challenge to convince your colleagues. I want to know what they tell you. What is their problem? Why aren't they ready to start opening those borders? Please, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President,
Yeah.
clear question there. What's the problem?
Yeah, I know the problem, but I can't find the answer.
Well, identifying the problem is always the first step.
Yes, but I'll probably speak to the two questions combined.
Please, yes. We're tight for time. Yeah.
First, the conflicts inevitably affect regional integration.
Yes.
But One, I want to see it as having problems which we must try and address simultaneously, rather than just saying, let's address one, then we move to another. While we try to prevent or resolve conflicts that exist, we, at the same time, have to be working on integration. Yes. Because there are aspects of integration that can make progress even with the conflicts that we have. In fact, the beauty of it, well, I'm not talking about the beauty of conflict, I'm talking about the beauty of having such a multi-pronged approach. Yeah. Is that we have seen already the people of any country in our region or beyond. The African people, for them, they are ahead of their leaders in terms of understanding the importance of integration or even practicing it. Yeah. In fact, even in some conflict areas, people are working together, doing business, there's trade going on, even with bullets flying over their heads. They are busy doing that. So it's a responsibility of governments, of leaders, political leaders, to make sure that this should not be the case, or it should not be normalized, that we can keep on conflicts and then okay, and say, there is integration taking place after all, so why don't we? No, I think we need to tackle both, prevent conflicts, or stop them, at the same time encourage regional integration, because that is what should be. And if you look at the African continent, in fact, I didn't say that I did not convince African leaders to the importance of regional integration. I was only referring to the difficulties where, for example, I have to, in fact, commend the African leaders who, in the first place, have been behind the thrust of seeing regional integration, of seeing the CFTA. They are the ones, the leaders are the ones who sat and said, we know we must have this continental free trade area, because they wanted it. They knew the importance. But this is in spite of the fact that conflicts have been there, or others will come, and so on and so forth. So leaders should go beyond just dealing with one issue at a time, but rather address across the board.
Across the panorama of concerns.
That's what we need to do. So, one, I agree, conflicts affect regional integration, and we need to put more time and energy and everything we have to make sure that we reduce on or eliminate conflicts. Same time, I encourage regional integration. In fact, one helps the other.
Reinforcing, mutually reinforcing.
Yes, yes. If you do that, regional integration encourages trade, business to happen, and these things help reduce on the conflicts or the causes of conflict once people are busy with the most serious issues.
Thanks.
So that is the most important. And on the other one, I don't think there is, I don't think there is anything wrong with the leaders as such cutting across. Yes, there are places you can say they have a problem, there are others that don't have much in terms of problem. And so we try to see how, again, come back to the point of working together. But the other part, let me leave it to my brother, friend, and President Tshisekedi to say something about it.
Monsieur le Président, what is the problem, in your view?
First of all, congratulations to President Kagame for this initiative to exchange, which by all means we will have to sit on the table and engage in the conversation and understand that there's no need to be having conflict. But this problem which Mr. Bassam had asked about the conflict, conflict is a serious problem because it's holding the development of Africa continent. I don't think conflict will have made Addis Ababa as the sitting place for the institution of Africans. In our regions, we have this capacity or influence which is important in Africa. I'll try to illustrate that in three ways quickly. In Congo, it is because of this intervention we have avoided the biggest conflict, because even back then when we used to be opposition, we used to go to our counterpart in the regions to solve this problem. Let's take the example of CEDEAO with President Compaoré. Again, it was the CEDEAO who had participated to bring peace in Burkina Faso. And in SADC, you see that these organizations, they play a very big role in the regions. At the same time, it works to bring the equality in the similar way with the Union Europe. When there's a certain problems and they will come in and try to bring the balance to contribute or participate on how to bring peace in the regions. So to avoid conflict, the regions have a big role to play for all this, because the regions is what can help to bring the true development.
Merci. The clock has declared war on us and is about to beat us, unfortunately. We have another few items, so it remains to me to thank you both profusely. Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. And may I wish you well on behalf of the Forum in your new work in Congo. I know you've got a very difficult few weeks ahead of you with the internal political, shall I say, negotiations. But from talking to your team, I understand that you're on top of things, and we look forward to seeing the new Congo under your leadership. Thank you so much for attending this conference. Sincere thanks. Thanks. Monsieur President, thank you so much.